Well, this is big news, and the neocons are already trying to scuttle this deal. President Trump, Russian President Putin, about to meet face-to-face for the first time during his second term to iron out the scaffolding of a peace deal. Oh, and Ukrainian dictator Zelensky's going to be there too. Like, hey, don't forget about me, guys. I'll be here too, standing on a little soapbox, a little apple box. So the three of them coming together next week in the United Arab Emirates, hosted by the president of the UAE. This is a peace summit by all accounts. You could say it was pressured in part by President Trump's 10-day, deadline about tariffs. Already putting a 50% tariff in place for Russian oil purchases on India. So how much more painful could this have been? Would Russia have really cared about the sanctions? Hard to say. They've managed to avoid and deal with any of these sanctions from the beginning. Yesterday, we got our clearest sign yet, though, that there is a real chance for peace after Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, went to Moscow, delivered Trump's message. We don't exactly know what the substance of that message was. I've been trying to find out from insiders. We don't know the full extent of that message, but the message was received, and apparently the framework that was delivered was agreed upon by Russia as, quote, quite favorable to the Russian side. What exactly does that mean? Again, we don't know. We're going to unpack that a little bit further in a minute as we talk about that. But first, Russian President Putin was just asked about this upcoming trip during this meeting, and he said many friends are willing to help us resolve this conflict. Listen.
Ради Бога, извините, что прерываю такую интересную экскурсию, но в свете последних новостей о вашей будущей встрече с Трампом, кто был инициатором этого саммита?
Заинтересованность была проявлена с обеих сторон. Кто там какое слово сказал первым, это уже не имеет ничего.
А можете уточнить, ваш помощник сказал, что она будет на следующей неделе, скорее всего. А где? Хотя бы намекнуть место.
У нас много друзей, которые готовы нам помочь организовать мероприятия подобного рода. Вот один из друзей, президент Объединенных Арабских Эмиратов. Я думаю, что мы решим, но это было бы одним из подходящих, вполне подходящих мест.
So the UAE will be the site of it. Zelensky will be there. Will he be there? Zelensky, he was asked, is he going to be there? Well, we've said he's more than welcome to.
He doesn't need to be.
He doesn't need to be because he doesn't hold any of the cards.
He can send an email. That could be an email.
He could send one of his lackeys. It doesn't matter because the terms of this agreement will be set by Putin. And with help from the United States in this, but it's really going to be dictated by the Russian side. And Putin holds all the cards, as we've said repeatedly here on the show. Russia is winning on the battlefield. The Ukrainian military is collapsing. They're conscripting now 60-year-olds, 14-year-olds. NATO is fractured. Zelensky is panicking. And Trump and Witkoff had come to terms with that reality. Russia is writing the terms of this deal, make no mistake about it. And not the Pentagon, not NATO, and certainly not the Biden holdovers whispering in Zelensky's ear. They have no power anymore. They can drag this thing out for as long as they want, but Zelensky's favorable numbers inside of Ukraine have absolutely crumbled. Protests on the street. Moms fighting back against the conscription of their children into vans. And here's where things, though, get really interesting, in my personal opinion, because just hours ago, the Kremlin officially confirmed Trump and Putin will happen in the coming days. Right on cue, though, Trump's new tariffs on dozens of countries just went into effect. So all of this happening at the same time. But some of the West are calling this pressure tactic on America's so-called allies who've been quietly funding Ukraine's war efforts behind the scenes, especially Germany, France, and the Netherlands. I'm seeing it as economic warfare, maybe with like a peace prize kind of built into it at the end of all of this. Trump is showing his cards. He's playing ball on peace, play ball on peace or get hit with these tariffs. 50% tariffs to India for buying Russian oil and, also maybe buying Russian weapons. If Trump pulls this off, he'll be able to do something no Western leader has come close to, which is ending this war in Ukraine by talking, not by sending more weapons.
But he's doing that too.
Yeah, well, there are still more weapons flowing through his NATO proxies but not ones that he
And
actually
because
signed off.
Congress shoved it into the defense bill.
Exactly. He didn't ask for it.
Right.
So,
But
so
he has
Congress
not
is like,
made an effort to. When the Trump administration cut Ukraine off of intelligence, Ukraine panicked, and we opened that back up. So it's not like we're actually stopping support for Ukraine. And I think most of us think the president does have more cards, could actually do that, but has not actually done it yet, which I would have liked to have seen.
So neocons hate this, to be clear. Again, that's why they're funneling more weapons into Ukraine, even as we're trying to put this peace deal together. Just glance at social media neocons over the past 48 hours saying that Trump is buckling to Putin.
Who cares?
Why should you meet with Putin? Until he gives back all that land that he took from the Ukrainians, you shouldn't have a peace talk with him.
Oh,
He's
they
a
say
warmonger.
while standing next to Netanyahu, who is taking all of Gaza for himself. Why are you talking to Putin? Here's Netanyahu, my bestie, who has annexed an entire country now.
I mean,
am I
love
the only one who
hypocrisy.
literally grits his teeth when he sees Mike Pompeo post on X?
Yes.
No, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. Nikki Haley. I don't want to hear from Mike
Oh, my
Pence,
gosh.
Nikki Haley, Lindsey Graham, any of the other neocons who actively want this war to continue. So the warmongers in Washington and Brussels are already foaming at the mouth. They're furious about this. They want this war to drag on. Peace talks they want to collapse. This is bad for business. This is bad for the military-industrial complex, of course, especially if Trump and Putin bypass them entirely. So the question is, can Trump close this deal next week? All the groundwork has been laid. The scaffolding is there. It's quite reasonable, the deal that was given to the Russian side. Does that include all of the land that they have already acquired that was, ethnic Russians, Crimea, Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk? We'll see next week. Can Trump close it? Or I don't know. But I think next week is going to be huge.
But
in
you
Dubai.
see Zelensky, if you follow him on X or any of his platforms, he's hedging his bets. So every hour there's a picture of him on his cell phone saying, I spoke to Ursula von der Leyen or Mark Rutte or Viktor Orban or whatever, Western leader or American leader. And we agreed. Russia's the aggressor. We want peace, but only peace through honesty. It's all the same bullcrap that he keeps hedging his bets because he wants no peace agreement so that this can continue and he can pretend as if he has some role in it, which he doesn't. It's really the two people
Can we
who need
see-
to meet will meet.
Can we see the front of the phone in the pictures, please, so we can,
That's what I was
prove
worried. I'm
that
like,
wasn't
that
just like a
phone's not
photo
on.
shoot of 30 photos of him on the phone.
Right.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about Israel now. Benjamin Netanyahu wants American soldiers to occupy and fight in Gaza as part of his ethnic cleansing of Gaza plan. So will Americans support this? Will you be happy to send American forces to Gaza? Not just the special forces that have already been there and sort of facilitating things, but I mean, I'm talking real occupation forces to keep the peace. Would you do that? So tonight at 6 p.m. Israel time, just a few hours ago, Benjamin Netanyahu convened his security cabinet to approve a massive new offensive plan in Gaza. The Israeli government's plan to escalate military operations in Gaza involve the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian civilian population of Gaza City specifically, and Gaza's central refugee camps. Ynet has reported that Israel plans to push the civilian population out of the area and direct them to the south, probably into Egypt, in an effort to prompt them to leave Gaza altogether. Israeli officials and Prime Minister Netanyahu told us back in May that their ultimate goal is the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, the Gaza Strip, which they call voluntary migration. Under what weird world do you live in? If you ask the Palestinians, is this like voluntary migration?
We never wanted to be here in the first place.
Here's voluntary. We're
Here's
going to launch an
my
RPG.
chance to live in the Bahamas like I always wanted.
We're going to launch an RPG at this spot over here. Do you want to voluntarily stand there or stand over here? So it's voluntary that you don't want to stand in the spot where we're about to bomb and blow everything up. Okay, that's voluntary migration. Laughable. Where would the Palestinian population
The last time
go?
they did this.
I mean, where are they going to go? Romania? They're going to go into Egypt permanently? According to the IDF, they believe this new military offensive is expected to take months, according to the IDF. The IDF is warning that it would lead to heavy Israeli casualties, and they're warning that any remaining Israeli hostages would likely be killed. Did you hear me? Let's pause there for a moment. Imagine if you're the family of those hostages and you're being told by the IDF, you're being told by the Netanyahu government that they expect your loved ones to be killed. Of course, Israel's Hannibal Directive is clear in this matter. It has been. You guys all know about the Hannibal Directive. You're smart. You're a smart audience. It was put in place by Israel in the 1980s by the IDF. Its purpose was to prevent Israeli soldiers from being captured alive by enemy forces. In other words, even if it meant killing the captured soldier in the process or response. So Israel doesn't care about their missing soldiers. It's part of the plan. Of course, the Hannibal Directive was ordered on October 7th as part of the plan. Friend of the show, Dan Cohen, has covered this extensively. Israeli soldiers were told to stand down, not fight back for hours on purpose. Israelis were captured. Israel ordered airstrikes that killed its own people. So the plan begins now. No more worrying about hostages. One Israeli official told Ynet that, quote, the intention is to conquer Gaza, end quote. And what about American forces? Well, General Mike Flynn, Steve Bannon have a thought on that.
The worst is right now in Israel, where the IDF has said, for political reasons, Netanyahu's come up with it. We got to occupy Gaza right now. And this is going to be like this Iranian situation where they can't finish what they started. He is looking for American troops to come in and be part of that because the IDF doesn't have it. Who tells me that? Not Steve Bannon, not Breitbart, not General Flynn. The Times of Israel and the Jerusalem Post are saying they're at each other's throats in these meetings where the IDF is sitting, the general's sitting there going, dude, my troops are worn out. I can't even take down Hamas right now militarily. We're struggling to do that. I can't occupy a thing with millions of people. It'll be 10 times worse than Iraq.
Yeah, so who's going to do it? American forces. Will we go along with that? Let us know in the comments below. Have you guys seen the latest headlines about fluoride in our water supply? It is incredibly disturbing. The future of oral care isn't fluoride, it's peptides. And the wellness company just launched the first ever peptide paste that regenerates gum tissues and strengthens enamel, naturally whitens your teeth. It's called Smile, which is a doctor-formulated breakthrough that actually works with your body's natural repair processes. This advanced formula blends targeted peptides with blue spirulina, aloe vera, and also powerful remineralizers to boost blood flow, stimulate collagen, and help rebuild lost gum tissue, all while gently whitening without sensitivity issues on your teeth. No fluoride, no peroxide, no artificial dyes, none of it. Just real clean ingredients that fight bad bacteria and support a healthier mouth from the inside out. If you're ready to upgrade your oral health today, experience the future of oral care with Smile and get 10% off plus free shipping. Just head over to twc.health/redacted. Use that code redacted to get 10% off. Take action today for a healthier tomorrow.
The Pentagon has awarded $10 billion to Palantir to consolidate all of its tracking software into one AI platform. That's right, Palantir, the company known for building surveillance tools that don't just track military movement, but also us as well. Here is this new $10 billion contract by the Department of Defense. They're saying they're done. What they want to be done is to take 75 separate software tools and streamline it into one system. And their pick to do this is Palantir. They say no one else can do the job. You might be thinking, well, that seems like it's illegal because you can't just award a government contract to one company without open bids, right? People go to jail for this. Well, U.S. law does, in fact, require open bidding for federal contracts under the Competition in Contracting Act. But the Pentagon here is saying, no, we can't open this up. Only Palantir can do it. Look how they wrote this. Literally, only Palantir can direct this full suite of commercial solutions. This doesn't mean, they say, that they won't be competitive on future programs, but how can anyone ever compete with Palantir once they've built everything? That makes no sense. That's like saying, well, only Bob the Builder can build my house, but once the house is built, we'll take competitive contracts or open bids. Makes no sense. So clearly this is a government-run monopoly on the software that they want, and they know intimately because Palantir was never just a tech vendor. It's always been an intelligence contractor. Now, when you hear Palantir, what people mostly worry about, not just tracking what they say is troops, military equipment, food, supply chains. It's also about tracking people, us. They already have been using this to track anyone they think is an immigrant. They have a contract with ICE that was made public earlier this year for software. What they say is to track self-deportations and gang members. Do you think this is not a dragnet for American citizens? If you actually believe that, I would like to introduce you to someone named Edward Snowden. Now think about how all of this government surveillance software, this exclusive government contract, which is, again, typically illegal, but a carve out for Palantir. And now look how Palantir's software is performing on the marketplace. Its stock is up 600%. Since last year. On Monday, they reported their best ever earnings with more than $1 billion in revenue in the second quarter, which was a 53% growth from U.S. government contracts. Our money, taxpayer money. So they're doing gangbusters on taxpayer dollars for software that tracks us, and there's no one that can compete with them because the government says no. So how do you like that? Do you like that?
No, a lot of people in our chat say, Palantir. Yeah, it was $10. Remember, it was $10 a share. I was trying to put this up on the screen, but I couldn't. Anyway, $10 a share. Now it's up over, whatever, $100 some a share. So people are raking in the money on this.
Yeah.
Good.
What were you going to say, Philip?
Oh, just wasn't sort of like J.D. Vance kind of backed by Palantir?
Yes.
To begin with, like Peter Thiel. It's odd that the government would just bypass all competitive contracts in that way for Palantir.
Right. Literally, people go to jail if they think someone was your friend and got a government contract through you. Like, the government prosecutes people for that, but not in this instance.
Well, and the big gold dome. I mean, the gold dome is hands in hands, as someone points out in our chat, too. The Golden Dome is going to be Palantir architected. And, of course, this big push for drone technology as well will also be architected in part by the biometric scanning and all of that. So, yeah, exactly. Someone in the chat says, maybe I just got to stop using the internet altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but they have license plate tracking software, too. So what are you going to do about that? They can track you driving around. So good luck with that. Okay, well, the U.S. and Israel are arming the guys looting the aid trucks in Gaza, and it's not Hamas. That is not conspiracy theory. That is reporting from the Washington Post. This man you see here is named Yasser Abu Shabab. He describes himself as a humanitarian and a liberator, but inside Gaza, he's known as a gang leader. He's been accused of running aid looting organizations, stealing and smuggling what was sent by the United Nations. So when Israel says Hamas steals the aid, they know that's not true because they work with the groups who are stealing the aid. This has been going on and reported for over a year. Last year, the Post reported that these armed gangs operate in Israeli-controlled zones where the IDF either looks the other way or offers logistical support for the theft of aid. Isn't that crazy? The Netanyahu government says, well, yeah, we support groups that are against Hamas because we're aligned. We're against Hamas. Netanyahu said, what's so wrong with that? But again, what they're doing is helping this aid be taken so that they can scapegoat Hamas, which needs no help, right? So Israeli forces, according to the Post, have refrained from interfering when Abu Shabab and his men show up with AK-47s. Where do you think they got those? From us, the United States. And they patrol the area. They stop UN and Red Cross vehicles. They have no authority to do so. They just roll up and do it. The United Nations has been complaining about this, saying that they operate like a drug cartel, trying to assert checks over these trucks. Here's the reporting that they have positioned themselves as a de facto authority in Gaza. They set up these checkpoints, videos, they just roll up. The United Nations says this guy has a full glide militia up and running, fully backed by Israel. The UN says that they refuse to cooperate, which stands to reason if they know these guys will steal it. So again, when you see these Israeli influencers walking around UN aid saying, look, United Nations has aid here, they won't distribute it, because they can't get past these thug checkpoints that Israel is supporting to put there. So they're not telling you the whole story. And so Al-Shabaab now told the Washington Post that he has, no, you know what? I'm supported. I have a whole makeshift society. Under his command, he says at least 2,000 civilians live there under the rule of about 100 people. He claims that he's building schools, hospitals. His aid workers say he's stealing the aid before it reaches hospitals. So, are we funding humanitarian relief or are we funding organized theft?
By the way, can we point out that the Gray Zone reported on this like a year ago?
Okay. Yeah, and so did the Post. Yeah.
And so I love how then, now that the mainstream media says it, people can pay attention to it.
Well, the reason it's worth revisiting is because Israel keeps saying the UN won't distribute their aid. There's aid. We're putting the aid there. They know who is the barrier. If we don't know that because we're not there, then we buy that BS, right?
Yeah.
So again, this guy says he's got whole civilian structures, schools, health centers. How believable is that? While Gaza is being steamrolled, he's got infrastructure, but he openly says that he expects support from Israel and the United States, the European Union, and other Arab states. So if he's getting support from Israel, he is de facto getting support from the United States because that's our funneled money. So we are supporting this war, we say, to support democracy and peace in Gaza, but yet it's this ragtag group that we are supporting to arm against Hamas. I just want to ask this question. When has that ever worked out for us in Afghanistan? We supported rebels. What did we get? The Taliban. In Syria, we supported ISIS for them to turn around and attack us. Both of these groups, attacked Americans, fueled American hate in the Middle East. When are we going to learn from this, I wonder? Also worth pointing out that this feels very manipulative to be told we are providing aid when we know that there is a checkpoint that's stealing that aid. And then we can say, it's just not our fault that it doesn't make it there. It is our fault if we're funding the guys with the AK-47s who are taking it. And if you're still worried about people starving in Gaza, the Israeli government says, you don't need to. They say this Time magazine cover was faked because there's a photojournalist there who took it, and people knew that they were getting their picture taken. That's how photojournalism usually works. So it wasn't staged. There's actually video that it was a real distribution. You can see it here. I can't show it to you because Al Jazeera every single time dings us with a copyright infringement strike. But you can look this up if you want for yourself. It's easy to find. Philip brought this up. If that photo was staged just because the guy took it, well, then by that logic, the Vietnam War was staged because that guy had a camera. So yeah, there is actual proof of starvation in Gaza. That was a real photo. We're not saying Time magazine has never manipulated photos before. They absolutely have, but this is not true debunking. What I didn't bring, but what I should have, is that a new poll inside of Israel shows that upwards of 75% of people do not worry about starvation in Gaza because their government denies it. So they are very, it seems, either they don't believe it or they're not worried about it because they're not allowed to. So let us know what you think of that.